10 common myths about mental illness. Myth 1. Fact. Mental illness aren't real illnesses. Fact. The word we use to describe mental illness has changed greatly over time. We haven't changed. In fact, the mental illness are not the regular ups and downs of life. Mental illness create distress, don't go away on their own. There are real health problems which effective treatment. When someone breaks their arm, we wouldn't expect them to just get over it. No, would we blame them if they needed a cast, sling, or other help in their daily life while they recovered? Myth 2. Mental illness will never affect me. Fact. All of us will be affected by mental illness. Researchers estimate that as many as 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health problem or illness in any given year. You may not experience a mental illness yourself, but it's very likely that a family member, friend, or co-worker will experience challenges. Myth number 3. Mental illness are just an excuse for poor behavior. The number fact. It's true that some people experience mental illness may act in a way that are unexpected or seem strange to others. We need to remember the illness, not the person, is behind these behaviors. No one chooses to experience a mental illness. People who experience a change in their behavior due to a mental illness may feel extremely embarrassed or ashamed around others. It's also true people with a history of mental illness are like anything else. They may make poor choices or do something unexpected for reasons unrelated to symptoms of their illness. Myth 4. Bad parenting causes mental illness. The fact is the fact. No known factor causes mental illness. Mental illness are complicated conditions that arise from a combination of genetic, biology, environment, and life experience. Family members and loved ones do have a big role in support and recovery. Myth 5. People with mental illness are violent and dangerous. Some people try to predict violence so they know what to avoid. However, the cause of violence are complicated. Research agreed that mental illness are not good predictors of violence. In fact, if we look at mental illness on their own, people who experience a mental illness are no more violent than people without a mental illness. Excluding people from communities links to violence, people with mental illness are often among those who are excluded. It's also important to note that people who experience mental illness are much more likely to become victims of violence than become violent. Myth number 6. People don't recover from mental illness. There is a fact to that. That's not true. Fact, people can recover from mental illness. Today there are different kinds of treatment, services, and support that can help. No one should expect to feel unwell forever. The fact is, people who experience mental illness can and do lead productive and engaged lives. They work, volunteer, or contribute their unique skills and abilities to their communities. Even when people experience mental illness, they last for a long time. They can learn how to manage their symptoms so they can get back to their goals. If someone continues to experience many challenges, it may be a sign that different approach or supports are needed. Here's another myth about mental illness. 7. Myth number 7. People who experience mental illness are weak and can't handle stress. Fact, stress impacts well-being. But this is true for everyone. People who experience mental illness may actually be better at managing stress than people who haven't experienced mental illness. Many people who experience mental illness learn skills like stress management and problem solving so they can take care of stress before it affects their well-being. Taking care of yourself and asking for help when you need it are a sign of strength, not weakness. Myth 8. People who experience mental illness can't work. The fact, whether you realize it or not, workplaces are filled with people who experience mental illness. Mental illness doesn't mean someone is no longer capable of working. Some people benefit from changes at work to support their goals, but many people work with few supports from their employee. Most people who experience serious mental illness want to work, but face systematic barriers to finding and keeping meaningful employment. Myth number 9. Kids can't have a mental illness like depression. There are adult problems. The fact is, even children can experience mental illness. In fact, many mental illness first appear when a person is young. Mental illness may look different in children than in adults, but they're a real concern. Mental illness can impact the way young people learn and build skills, which can lead to challenges in the future. Unfortunately, many children don't receive the help they need. Here's a myth that people believe. Myth 10. Everyone gets depressed as they grow older. It's just part of the aging process. Fact, depression is never an integral part of aging. Other adults may have greater risk of depression because they experience so many changes in roles and social networks. If an older adult experiences depression, they need same support as anyone else. These myths and many more exclude people with mental illness from our community and create barriers to well-being. If we want to reduce the impact of mental illness on our communities, we need to learn the facts and start with our assumptions and behaviors. What can I do about it? Changing attitudes and behaviors take time. It might seem like one person can't possibly make a difference. Actually, we can all find small ways to help. First, we can all think where our information comes from: news stories, TV shows, movies, and other media don't necessarily give you the whole story. These stories are usually sensational or shocking because that's what sells. But they don't necessarily represent most people. Experience thinking critically about where our information comes from can help us separate sensational stories from balanced point of view. Second, we can all support laws and practice in our community to stop discrimination against people with mental illness and promote inclusion. Third, we can all spend time with people who experience mental illness to share and learn from each other. The best when everyone in equal position of power. Volunteering with a community organization is a great way to connect with others.